I'm gonna give you a heads up right now too. One of my odds and ends, I'm probably gonna go on a rant tangent about
Okay.
just to vent because I have nowhere else to vent about it.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's what we do here.
Bitch, incessantly.
Yeah, it's basically that's it. I think that's what podcasts are, aren't they? Like, unless you're doing some sort of like narrative, that's what a podcast is, to bitch incessantly.
I don't know. Even if there's a narrative podcast, sometimes there's some bitching.
Some heavy bitchery.
If there's other people involved who are just like not down for whatever is going on, or just like, wait, this wasn't what I thought we were doing. Like the bitching happens. The bitching always happens.
Right, our slogan should be a horrible gaming podcast, more bitching. Well, we go 120 minutes, an hour and 20, so we give you more bitching for your buck.
Our bonus episodes are like 20% more bitch.
20% more bitch.
Time to get your fix. It's a horrible gaming podcast. It's not good. It's not great. Horrible gaming podcast. It's not even what you would call fair. It's really not that good. Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Hello, my name is Zachary with Old Man Gaming, and you have decided for whatever reason to tune into another Horrible Gaming Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I, however, am not alone. I am joined by
Neil, aka quote-unquote Tiny Wizard.
Yes, a tiny wizard is with me as well. So hello, Neil. But before we get into it, just a couple of credits, a little housekeeping. Number one, if you are watching this on YouTube, you are noticing fancy graphics behind your fancy timestamps. That is done by Mr. Mark Bell. We thank him for that. And then the theme song that you just heard is provided by my brother, the man who makes the music, Nick Van Sliders. We thank him for that.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so that brings us to the first segment of the show, and possibly the most important, definitely our favorite, and that's fan interaction. That's where us, the co-hosts, talk to you guys, the fans. We read out your comments in all the places we can find them. We use your comments to decide the horrible arena, and, just generally talk to you guys, see what you guys are thinking, and riff on whatever you guys are thinking. So, we got some comments, but I want to start from a Discord comment because I have to make a little correction. I said on the show last week when we were talking about the KFC console that KFC also designed a tabletop role-playing game. I was wrong. It was Wendy's. And the person who corrected me, Seatown 1980, Old Man Gamer, listening to the podcast, the tabletop RPG was Wendy's, not KFC. Sorry for the actually. So I appreciate it, Seatown. It was Wendy's, not KFC. Sorry about that. And then Kevin Rains. He says, epic battle music plays as Kayla holds a Coke can.
That's the thing, though. Like, if you were there to see it,
it was there.
It was.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it definitely was. It definitely was a thing.
I had a lot of fun with that podcast. I know it was kind of all over the place, but that was a lot of fun. And when they got super catty about clothing, I thought that was just so great. That was like, we would have never talked about that, and they were just like, they riffed on gamer. Business gamer casual, and I just loved it. I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, that was really fun. I was telling him between segments here that it was just really just fun to record that episode. Like, it didn't even feel like an actual recording.
No.
It was literally just sitting at the table talking.
It was and
wonderful.
I tell you, it was like 2 hours and 10 minutes. I had to cut
Yeah.
it down to the hour and 34. It was no joke of editing. So moving on, Kev Tutal says, just learn to blow your damn nose. Kevin, I cannot begin to describe to you. Like, my wife says the same thing to me. It is not in my nose. When I do that, it's because it's in the back of my throat, in my head. I cannot explain how it feels. But, like, when I do that noise, my nose is dry. It's not coming out of my face. It's like in the back of my throat, and I'm sucking to get leverage on it. It's terrible, this is gross, but I'm telling you, man, it's not in my nose. I could blow my nose all day long. No snot will come out.
You know, I was actually going to make a sucking to get leverage joke, but you know what? That's low-hanging fruit.
Sometimes you gotta suck for the leverage. I think that's the name of this episode.
Oh, no.
Yeah, sucking to get leverage. I like that.
Oh, jeez. Okay. I mean, okay.
Seeing as though I had to... Did you notice I had to change the episode name for the YouTube because I realized I had actually already used the title?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, we actually had to do it live, like, forever ago. And then, like, on the YouTube version, that's why I said do it live again. Because...
Oh.
Yeah. We're getting into that territory where stuff's going to start repeating itself. I got to be very careful.
I mean, eventually it's just everything's going to repeat. I mean, we've gotten to the point that we have to redo pitches.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, everything's secular here. He says then cold opens are gold. I agree. Anything with my kid in a Mexican wrestling match is gold there, Kev. Trust me. Kev Tutal then said, do it live, question mark. Already shut it down. All right, shut it down. You, sir, are out of line. This is not acceptable. There will be consequences. Blood will be shed. I'm assuming Kevin noticed the secondary naming, and I apologize again. He then said, I didn't vote either. I'm terrible. No, you aren't, Kev. No, you aren't. He then said, Nintendo may have gone against what the investor call said, but I think this may have already been in the books. Nintendo seems to be in the workflow of making a game complete a game, announce said game, bug test and micro adjust from hype, launch game 6 months later. I honestly think that they have feature complete games, but not polished before they say it's coming out.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
There's a very real possibility that when in that investor call, it was more so like, hey, moving forward from this point, because that trailer that the show that we saw was probably already edited, put together, planned to be announced, this, that, and the other. So it could very well have been a moving forward thing. So that's an excellent point.
That's possible. Still, it definitely mixed the message for the people, you know? He then says Bowser in photorealism is scary. I definitely agree with that. He then said,
I don't even want to look.
He said, I'm Mario, and he's Luigi Mario. We're the Mario Brothers. That is a direct quote from the movie.
Yeah.
Which is terrible that I know too much about. He then said, streamers are always looking for the next big thing. Valheim hit at the right time. I'm going to agree with you halfway. I think Valheim is a quality product. I don't think it's like I'm going to insult Among Us. I don't mean to. Among Us is a fun game. I don't necessarily think Among Us is fine, but it's a small little dinky game that hit at the right time. I think that one was timing. I think Valheim had some timing, but it's a really solid kind of AA.5 experience, and I think that's really cool. Kev then voted. He votes for Zach. Neil, I need more substance. Though the Wild West almost swung it. So with Melissa and Kayla's live vote, I tie that sucker back up, sir.
You know what? Honestly, I would have been mad if anybody voted for my pitch at all. I had zero.
You didn't have zero. You had a good idea. You just needed to give me gameplay. You need to give people.
Oh
gameplay,
yeah, no, that idea. Like when we started doing the Horrible Arena, that was the first time that I had thought about processing, putting anything out. So that was literally surface level. There was, like I said, like if there was any week that I could have forfeit, like it would have been that one because I had nothing prepared. I actually have something this week though, so.
So do I. I'm not gonna lie. It was a real tough. It was a real tough mission Melissa sent us on.
Huh. I mean, mine came pretty quick. I don't know.
What?
I said mine came pretty quick, so.
I mean, I hope you're sticking to what she actually said, though, because it wasn't just family friendly. It was a game that both my child and me would enjoy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's,
okay. All right.
Yeah.
Because that was the hard part for me. It was like I could make a family friendly game in my sleep, but making a game that I'm going to play for the long haul and she's going to play for the long haul, that's a little bit tougher in my opinion. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We shall see.
I cannot find my horrible arena notes right now, so I will come back to it and write those down at a later time. So, that's it for fan interaction, unless you want to add something, man.
No, sir.
All right. Well, I think we're going to go to our first talking point because we have a lot to talk about today.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
So that brings us to our first talking point. And, man, I got to say, in my opinion, another botched one of these digital event things, but PlayStation,
Absolutely.
Sony had a state of play. A lot of people got really excited about it, and then they showed us very little of anything. So, I don't know, Neil, you want to take it away first?
Overall,
I don't even know where to start on that one.
I don't even know, because there's just so much weirdness involved in all of it. But the biggest thing for me right now is, I mean, I was thoroughly disappointed with the show for sure.
Right.
But I was also expecting something, like some sort of update on something, even
right.
Another teaser for something else.
Right.
Now, those who went into this show expecting more info on Horizon, more info on the new God of War, massive, huge announcements. That information is going to come this summer. I don't think that a February show that, frankly, I feel like was only put out because Nintendo had theirs. Just because...
Yeah, it did feel like very reactory, too, didn't it?
Yeah, it was very much like, oh, yeah, we're here, too. And, they even showed the same dodgeball game.
I want to talk about that. Yeah.
And that was wild, too.
Yeah.
Because, they framed it completely different than how Nintendo did.
Right.
And I turned to Kayla and even said, because she and I were watching it together, it's like, I don't understand. Is this another dodgeball game? Is this going to be the new Battle Royale thing? Is just dodgeball? But no, I mean, it was they didn't really have much to show. I mean, to be fair, they did show some stuff, like the inevitable Final Fantasy VII PS5 update. There was a surprise with that, the Yuffie story DLC, which is going to continue the story a little bit.
And is also super confusing in its own right. I mean, we should pick one of these and start talking about them, but I'll let you go over the summary first, because you know it.
Yeah,
because I want to talk about all these more in depth.
Well, even the Final Fantasy thing, whenever we get back to Final Fantasy, I want to cover something else a bit more about that, because it was even weirder than it was even shown. But yeah, I don't know. The Returnal, was it called?
Yeah, it's Returnal.
Returnal is the only game that is the new IP that has been shown off that I'm intrigued about, because A, it looks like a third-person Doom and how fast it plays. And B, it's got that weird psychological thriller sort of thing, also sci-fi horror sort of deal. I just feel like this show, if this show was anything other than a reactionary show, it should have been something along the lines of like something more substantial, more, even if they were to do that dumb teaser for a teaser thing saying, hey, in the summer, we're going to tell you more about this thing. You know, I don't know.
Okay.
What do you feel about it?
All right. So first of all, before we get into the individual stuff, right? I want to say something else that really irritated me about this show. And that was when they announced it, they also put in the tweet that this game was going to be all new games for PS5. Now, what bothered me so much about this is that none of these games are new, and they got away with it by a lot of them weren't on the PS5. But it's all stuff that was already announced or coming or whatever. So I feel like that was kind of a bait and switch there. And and that's the only counter that I have on the whole God of War Horizon Zero Dawn thing, because I don't think anybody was initially expecting that until they said this is all new games for PS5. Well, then you're definitely expecting some information on those games because that's the stuff is in the pipe for it,
Right.
But we didn't get anything really new other than the Final Fantasy thing, obviously Knockout City, although we had already seen that on the Nintendo show. And then Sifu, which I definitely want to talk about at some point. But a lot of this was retread or upreses for PS5. Not really a lot of special stuff. So I don't know. That to me felt a little bit shady.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I really had any interest in is the Final Fantasy VII stuff outside of Returnal. But Returnal, I've talked about it before, my thoughts on new IP. Like, I'm really nervous about new IP because you literally don't know what you're getting when you get into it. So that's going to be one of those try it before I buy it sort of situations.
Yeah. I mean, at the same time, we definitely need more new IPs in the industry.
And that's the thing. I know myself, like, I am an outlier in that. I know there are people who want new stuff. They're tired of HD remakes and retreads and remasters and endless entries into stuff. But there's some stuff too that had already been announced that we possibly, like, I at least myself would have thought that we would have seen more of. The Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
For that, they very well could have done that. Something for the Hogwarts. The Legacy of Hogwarts or Hogwarts Legacy, whatever it was called.
Right.
The Harry Potter game. Other games like that they showed. I mean, I'm glad that Kena Bridge of Spirits was there.
Yeah. They needed to show that. There is something else about the overall PlayStation thing that I kind of want to touch on too.
And what would that be?
What?
And what would that be?
That would be that much as I don't know if I want to say predicted, but I noticed last year and the trend continues, almost all of these are going into the Epic Store.
Yeah.
Like all these exclusives are also going to be PC. And that's a big shift for PlayStation because a lot of stuff from really Horizon Zero Dawn was the first real one to do it, but a PS exclusive was exclusive to the system. They've started to push in the PC territory, and actually I think that's one of the positive messages from here. I mean, I don't love the Epic system. I don't love the Epic launcher. I've said that before, but still I like the fact that they are starting to make it a little bit less exclusive, and we're able to get some of these things day one in PlayStation. It's really nice. I mean, day one on PC. It's really nice.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, as time marches on, it almost seems like more and more of a case of they would be stupid to not.
Yeah.
Not just for, the simple fact of, locking yourself down to one system, but actually kind of spinning off of that. They cannot get PS5s into people's hands.
This is true.
Like, literally, I mean, well, it's hard to get really newer computer stuff into people's hands, but we'll talk about that later.
We talk about it every show.
And it's going to be a doozy for me because I think I finally hit my breaking point. Anyways, yeah, like, why would Sony want to leave money on the table for the software sales when they can go to PC. It was always the joke was always the PC master race, but I mean, it has progressed to such a point that it's so mainstream that you kind of have to PC at this point because they can't get consoles in people's hands.
Well, and honestly, I mean, you say that like it's an inevitability, and maybe it was, but they've definitely held on to that way longer than they should have.
Oh, absolutely.
I've been saying for years they should have made their stuff less exclusive. They'd make more money off of it. More consoles, more places to play something means more money for you to make. And I don't understand why they don't understand that concept, why they think that like hoarding it in exclusivity is worth money. It's not. Money is putting it in front of as many people who are willing to spend the $60 as humanly possible, you know?
Zach, don't you have a video about exclusivity?
I think I do. I believe it's a terrible talk that you can see right here on the channel. Nice job, Neil. I like that one.
I'm on it today. I'm on it.
So let's talk about the games a little bit. So first of all, do we want to start with Final Fantasy since that was the thing that interested you the most?
You know what? Let's start with yours first because
Okay.
I don't know. There's a real weirdness going on with the Final Fantasy thing.
There is.
It might take up a little bit time, but I know you had mentioned Sifu.
Sifu looks amazing. First of all, I know that you're not a huge beat 'em up guy, but I kind of am. Like, I'm a low grade beat 'em up fan. I love Streets of Rage 4. I actually played Absolver on Xbox. It was in a Games with Gold once, and I tried it. And while the story was just lunatic bananas to follow, the combat was absolutely brilliant for an indie studio at that time. With that being said, they've just had money thrown at them, and now they're able to make kind of the AA experience game that they want. And man, does the fighting look good in that!
Yeah, it looked very fluid. I actually enjoyed the art style that they chose to go with on that.
Well, that was Absolver's art style.
Okay,
they just more fully realized it, I guess.
Yeah, I only know of Absolver by name. I don't know anything else about it.
It's really hard to explain. I mean, it's basically a 3D fighter in the same, like a 3D beat 'em up in the same kind of vein. But yeah, the art style was great. I love the mechanics that seem to be in place. The whole advancing your character through age sort of situation, and just the object fighting. Like, it really looks like an independent studio did good the first time, and they've just given them all the money they need to make the exact game they want to make. And I just couldn't be more excited for this. If there was any like shining star in the state of play, anything that like made it worth the time, was seeing that God, I can't remember the name of their company now. It's gonna bother me, but seeing that they made it, like, I just got so pumped up.
Yeah. Oh wow, that was weird. Yeah. I like the idea of an indie studio, like, basically making a name for themselves, and then somebody saying, hey, I like what you do, go ahead and do more of that. But it always scares me whenever that happens, because I always am worried about one of two things. Either A, that one company that's throwing the money tries to hold that over the indie developer's head.
Right.
Or B, that then goes to the indie's head, and then they go crazy way out far in left field and basically start trying to make a AAA game. And indies are indies because they are scaled back. They're more focused on the idea and driven by the idea than, hey, we know this thing is going to sell money.
Right.
Well, sell money.
Well, hey, I'm okay with them making a AAA game as long as they do it the smart way and they stick to their processes. You know what I mean? Like, the real thing is you can't go too far too fast, sort of situation, I think. I think indie studios are fully capable of making AAA games. It's just you have to scale up the right way, and you have to keep the same practices in place that you had to make your independent game successful, just on a bigger scale, and whether or not you can balance that, you know?
True.
All right, so, I mean, that's Sifu. I'm very excited about it. I guess before we go super negative, I would like to point out one other positive. I thought the trailer for Knockout City was really good, and I wasn't expecting it. It was a good move for PlayStation because it being on the Nintendo Direct made it look like it was a Nintendo exclusive. We know now that it's not, which means, I don't know, it could become an Xbox as far as we know at this point.
I find it very hard to believe that game is not going to be on Xbox.
Right,
given the fact that it's, I mean, stuff
it's
like
probably
that
going to be everywhere.
Yeah,
and everybody
happened in rare cases, but
yeah, and everybody thought it was going to be direct because it was made by the studio that did frickin' Mario Home Circuit.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Yeah, I just found that out. Like, man, I read an article on IGN. And I was like, the Home Circuit guys made this? Yes. So, like, I thought it was going to be exclusive until you saw it on the PlayStation show. Not to mention the fact the trailer was better. It was better. It made the game look better. It made the game look like a game instead of some weird thing, you know?
Right.
I do want to say it having a $20 price tag, I think, is a mistake. I think these kind of games have a space in the free-to-play world right now, and I think if like a game like this, if it's not competing in that free-to-play space, it's not winning, in my opinion. It's going to be a come-and-go sort of situation.
I'll absolutely agree to that. I mean, anything like that, like,
yeah,
if there is a campaign to it, a single-player campaign, then, like, okay, maybe, but at the same time, it doesn't have that staying power because you're paying a full price for this, right. And I would be hard-pressed to see this game come out with the $20 price tag and not still have microtransactions like it is a free-to-play game.
Well, and honestly, EA has that Rocket Arena that I reviewed not long ago, and that is actually, you have to pay for that. And then there's also microtransactions in it, and it's like, this is not fun. I don't like this. Like, and I'm not saying that, like, I know a lot of people hate free-to-play, but there's a time and place for them, and a multiplayer game like this is perfect for free-to-play space. And I think it being a $20 price tag is going to make it just... nobody's going to want to play it, you know?
Yeah. It's an unnecessary barrier to entry.
It is, and I think it could be a good game. I think that's a mistake on their part. So, let's move on to Final Fantasy.
All right. So... It's just so weird how this whole Final Fantasy thing has been tackled. So, at the end of Sony's show there, and one more thing, was the inevitable, as we knew it was coming, Final Fantasy VII Remake update for the PS5. I forget what they called it. Retrograde, I think it was, or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was some crazy thing. But it was Final Fantasy VII Remake something. It was like, oh, good God.
Yeah, but it is the 60 frames per second, updated visuals, stuff like that, update for the game that, again, we knew was coming. And they also, like, kind of surprise announced a special Yuffie episode, which is going to extend the story of this first part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake story, whatever they're going with, new story arc, I guess you want to call it. I don't know. And it's going to have, from what I understand, an all-new original character. So you're going to be able to play through that. That's fun, great, fine, whatever. I will absolutely be downloading it whenever it comes out in June. But they kind of ended with that. But there was more Final Fantasy VII news that's associated with that wasn't shown at Sony's thing.
Okay.
They're doing a mobile-only battle royale.
We were going to talk about that too, yeah.
Which, honestly, I love Final Fantasy. If they put it on console, I would be tempted to play it. But I barely do any games on my phone because
Right.
I hate touch controls.
Right.
So I will not be playing that unless they put it on a console. And then they also have decided to do an episodic retelling of the Final Fantasy VII extended universe of stories.
Right.
So from what I understand, the original Final Fantasy VII, Crisis Core, Dirge of Cerberus, and Advent Children are all going to be turned into a turn-based mobile game as well. All of this was announced at the same time, but only the Final Fantasy VII Remake and the Yuffie episode were shown. But I could be wrong on this, but I think I think the mobile remake episodic thing might also be coming to consoles too. So I'm really confused as to why all of this is going on. Like, I understand every single Final Fantasy that comes out, they do all of this tie-in stuff. They did it with Final Fantasy 15. They had a side-scrolling beat-em-up game and like a mobile game, as well as the movie and the actual game itself and anime, all of these other things. But Final Fantasy VII Remake has already been out for nearly a year at this point, and they're throwing all of this other side stuff at it now like it's a brand new entry in the series, wherein we got our Final Fantasy 16 announcement at the PS5 reveal, the price reveal show back in September, October, something around those lines, but was absent from this show and hasn't got any of the fanfare that Final Fantasy VII is getting. So I really am confused as to the only thing I can compare it to is literally throwing spaghetti at a wall. Like,
well, and it's
Square
not even
has
throwing
just
spaghetti at a wall. It's like throwing spaghetti outside. Why are you putting it on mobile? Why? Why mobile? I don't understand the mobile at all. It's got to be easier to develop these games for console. Like, I don't understand why put anything on and to have it only be on mobile is insane to me.
Yeah, I don't, especially from what it looked like as well for this battle royale that they're doing.
Right.
What they showed was, it looked very complicated stuff on the screen, and it's like, this would be very well suited for a console. Go ahead, throw it on a console. You could probably even expand it out, because I don't think I don't know if they had a lot of information out about it as to how many people will be playing in these battle royale matches. Right. But you could easily do like squads, like groups of like 100 even on a console, and have these be big, long matches that you play. Whereas if you're doing it on your phone, the game can only run so well on your phone, so you're probably only doing like 20, 25 people. But again, with these touch controls, with how complicated some of these games are, I get it. Some people can play on mobile with touch controls, but it's just beyond me.
Well, and aside from the touch controls, it's not the preferred place for gamers to game. Like, nobody wants to play on, like, don't get me wrong, like, I play PUBG on my phone every so often, but I do it when I can't play normal PUBG. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why anyone would think that would be anybody's preferred way to play. Like, fine, put it on mobile, but put it on console too. Like, why make these things for mobile specifically? I mean, we've already seen Nintendo do that and fail at it. And the only one that was even remotely successful was Mario Run. That was it. I mean, and they've made 3 of them. Like, I don't get it. I don't get the mobile push on that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, with the Mario thing, I think it was the very first, because it was the first Nintendo game on phones. I did play for about 2 months the Fire Emblem game that they have on there. Right. But even that kind of fell after a while when it started getting like crazy monetized and like buy our packs, do all the things, you hit that wall. Right. But
They also had a Mario Kart on there, and they had a Dr. Mario on there that I actually played for a while because I like Dr. Mario. But still, they weren't overall successful. Like, so I don't understand why anyone would push to mobile first.
I think it's purely because this maybe is just the cynic in me, but I think that the mobile push is because they can easily monetize it. They can monetize it way easier than they can on a console, because I feel like it's kids can get their parents' cards information loaded onto phones, and they can just kind of run away and hide and make these mobile purchases, as opposed to on actual consoles on the TV where, you know, mom and dad can see you doing what you're doing on the TV.
And I wouldn't write off something insidious like that. Definitely not. But at the same time, like, other companies have tried that and been not successful with that. So while that could be a viable theory, it doesn't really make sense because it's not uncharted waters. It's not like they're the first to try and do this, you know?
Right.
And it's been a resounding pushback when you try to put these like big property games on mobile that they don't do well. So like I just don't understand that push at all. As far as the Yuffie thing, I don't understand that. Like she is an optional character from the original game that, like, you don't even, like, you can play the entirety of Final Fantasy VII without ever getting Yuffie, ever. So, like, does that mean she's definitely going to be something that joins you eventually, or is she still going to be optional and this doesn't matter to you? Like,
I think
it's very weird, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think because she is a character that exists and they've shown her in other things, I think it's just one of those things that they're going to change the story and just be like, yeah, she's a thing.
Okay, but you've got great backstories to both Vincent and Sid that you could do side stories for them real easily. I think that would make more sense to do to do characters that definitely join your team that are more main than Yuffie. I never even got Yuffie. My brother never even got Yuffie. Like, it's confusing to me that they would pick this character who is basically like the reptile of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have no real... The only information that I know of the whole Yuffie situation in the original Final Fantasy VII, because like I said, I'm one of those weirdos who never played the original Final Fantasy VII through.
Okay.
But did start with the Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Okay.
So, like, I know that she's an optional character. I think, given the fact that she was... just like I said, everywhere else, I think that they're just gonna make her be
in the game,
just be a thing, be in the game. Judging by some of the dialogue that was in the trailer, she was asking about Cloud, so she knows of him already. So maybe it's just something that they're going to write off as happened off screen, and then like she's a thing now. I'm more interested in the fact that this is going to expand the story because I enjoyed what I played of Final Fantasy VII Remake. But B, we might get a little bit more of a glimpse into what they're going to do with part 2. And C, we're not getting part 2 until 2070.
We're going to be dead, man. We're going to
whatever.
Be dead.
Yeah.
You might be alive. You'll be in your 50s. I'll be long dead. You'll be doing this podcast with some young streamer. And, Logan's kid or something. And then, like, this isn't going to matter to us. The sequel's never going to come out. Like, enjoy the original, because that's it. These things, how long did this one get delayed, you know?
Right. So it was a long, hard development cycle, as all Square projects for some reason are.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, going back to the whole Sony show as a whole, I'm going to say what I said about the Nintendo show. If they do not come correct in the summer with a killer show, I think it bodes well. Doesn't bode well. Not bodes well. Does not bode well for this entire upcoming year of games, and B, possibly even the PlayStation 5 generation, because if you think about where Nintendo is, Nintendo's already got a console, they're already established. Right. Microsoft has been making their moves. They at least have Game Pass and been doing acquisitions. But the console that they have out right now, you don't even technically necessarily need just yet. Sony, sure, you can play some of the games on the PS, but the PS5 is an actual next-gen piece of hardware. Right. And I feel like all those jokes that were being made at Microsoft's expense the last generation may come back around to Sony. Right. If they do not have something this generation, because I mean, at least early in this generation, they'd be playing catch up, because they had even said all these games are coming out in the quote unquote launch window. Well, how wide is that freaking window? Yeah. I mean, these consoles came out in November. Yep. You're going into March. Well, by the time everyone's listening to this, it will be March. Mm-hmm. And the first big PS5 title, The Rift Apart, comes out sometime soon in the spring, I believe. Late spring, something like that. So I don't know. I feel like the next show that they have is going to set the tone for the generation.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, again, the console should have waited a year. I think this wouldn't be as much of a problem. We wouldn't have had anywhere near the amount of problems we've had with this console launch. But I think we've covered the PlayStation thing. You got anything to add before we move on to the second talking point?
No.
All right, well, let's do it.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so that brings us to our second talking point, and that would be not a fun one for me. I don't know if it's fun for anybody else, but it's finally over. We covered this game quite a bit on this channel. Everybody, I think, knows my feelings on this game, but EA has decided to cease production on Anthem. Anthem RIP. It is done. There will be no more further updates for the game. EA released a statement that pissed me off, that said that they were basically with Anthem every step of the way, and that they believed in them the whole time. And but they've got to focus on other products. So everybody who's working on Anthem is going to be moved to the Dragon Age project. And in addition to that, all the stuff that we've seen over the last year, all of the cool screenshots, all of the plans for 2.0, all of the upgraded stuff, we're never going to see any of it. It's done. So, super bummed about this. Basically, this game, as I've said, had amazing moment-to-moment gameplay. I feel it was rushed by EA. It needed more time. We've already talked about and I'm not talking about even normal crunch. That's debatable. We've talked about the hundreds of hours of crunch that they worked, the insanity claims that they've had there at that game, all the problems they had releasing it. And still, the game has amazing moment-to-moment gameplay that I loved very much. I was very excited for a 2.0. They also have had this small team working on it for a year, releasing all these things to the public of how cool it looks, and just to shut them down after all that work is hyper depressing to me.
Yeah, so here's what I think, and I'm actually going to don the tinfoil hat this time.
Oh no.
Yeah. So here's what I'm thinking.
That's my job. This never looks well on you. It never looks good on you when you do.
I know. You know what? But I can't help but to form it to my head, because I feel like they were waiting for this on purpose. They knew that they didn't have anything else. They caught so much backlash from the initial launch to the updates that they had done that changed the game for the better, but they changed it back after it was something that had to do with the loot drop rates. They dropped quote unquote too much loot, and that made the game quote unquote bad. Then, the whole Anthem 2.0 thing, they abandoned their roadmap, pissed everybody off. They're like, hey, you know what? We're making it better. We're doing the thing. Give us some time. Well, I think that they were waiting for some more information about this new Dragon Age to come out, the Mass Effect collection, and now they've announced the new Mass Effect project. I think that they waited on purpose to get people's attention focused on those things, so that way they could finally pull the trigger. Because they never once told us a single thing about this game, or at least this update to this game, that was going to make it something that people would come back to on an entirely new generation of consoles.
I would disagree with that last sentence, but everything else I would agree with. I think EA did that. I think there were definitely developers working on it that thought they were recreating Anthem for the people. And I think those guys have had their hopes and dreams dashed. And I think EA set them up for failure. But we definitely saw stuff that would have completely redone that game and definitely brought people back. They revamped the skill tree. They revamped the build system. They revamped the guns and the crafting systems in it. Like, the stuff they showed us would have made this game just a completely different thing. It definitely would have brought people back. It definitely got hype every time they released information about it. So I disagree with that part. However, the rest of your tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, I kind of agree with. The only caveat I'll put on that is I don't think the people who were working on this were in on it, because they were very obviously working very hard on it. And I think that's a real bummer in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
because those guys were really trying to save this game.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's kind of EA's shtick, is, leaving people in the dark and then screwing people over in the end.
Yeah.
But this game, I mean, I have to preface this, of course, with I did not play Anthem. The closest I got to playing Anthem was going to possibly buy it when it was on sale for a literal $1 at GameStop as a joke.
Well, next time you're over at my house before they shut down the servers, jump into it and play it. And I want to see what you think about it, like, just to see, like, you play like 20 minutes of it. I think you'll see what I mean, that the moment-to-moment gameplay is really fun and awesome. And then the other stuff is lack to be desired, I
actually forgot. I did download it. It's on my Xbox right now because it was part of the EA thing. It was in when
EA Play.
Yeah, I have that downloaded. I've literally never touched it, but yeah, I do have it downloaded because just sheer morbid curiosity got the better of me. But I still haven't played it.
I think you should try it. I think even after you play, you'll be like, this probably wouldn't have been for me, but I see what Zach is saying. Like, just to see it, I think it's worth tossing it in just to see the actual combat and the flying, like, when you're in the like bodysuits, is amazing.
And what really sucks too is everything that I saw about this game, even when it was first initially, what was it, like 2-3 years ago that it came out, whenever they had the demo and everything coming out for it, like, I was about it. Like, the gameplay, like the primes, the setups for combos between different characters, you could have some like crazy combinations. The flying looked great. It did look very fun. It's just, I feel like it was EA making BioWare do a thing. I don't think BioWare necessarily wanted to do Anthem. I think EA wanted to do Anthem and made BioWare do it.
I think BioWare wanted to do Anthem, but they wanted to do it a very different way than they were forced to do it. Does that make sense? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, I think it was their idea. I think the game came from them, but I think EA was like, hey, can you put this in the game? And I think that that was a big problem. Here's the thing. I don't necessarily think that they really failed that hard. The problem is that when you do a game like that, when you do like a game that needs that perpetual games as service stuff, and when you do a looter shooter, more importantly, is the loot has to be interesting and dynamic enough for you to want to go get it, you know? And the problem with this game is this game was really cool until you finished it. And then you realize that the end game just doesn't exist. Like, and that's the problem. Like, the biggest problem with these games, and, you know, I've been playing a lot of Warframe lately, which definitely has its issues. Free-to-play game, but definitely has its issues, especially with monetization. There's a couple of things I really hate about it. But the one thing it does good is there is no shortage of new shit to do. You play it for... And what they're really good at, too, is locking it behind a new mastery level. So you play it, and you're just about to get bored of it, then you unlock, like, a whole new system or a whole new thing to go get, you know? Or a whole new way to craft, or a whole new way to play. Like, every time you hit that mastery, it just kind of explodes with this new potential, new possibility. And I think that's where Anthem fell short, is it had this really good 20-hour experience and then nothing after it. And when you make a game like this, it needs to have stuff after it. It needs to have reasons to go do the things you've already done before. And I'm actually going to correct one thing you said. Okay. And it's not your fault. It's just probably misinformed. They didn't actually... The problem wasn't they gave too many legendaries. They didn't give any legendaries. The legendary drop rate was like 0.02%. So you could only get them from like these raids, and there's only 3 of these raids, so there's no dynamic interest in it. It's just the 3 same missions. You would just have to grind them over and over and over and over again. That was it. That was like the end game, and that was the problem.
That sounds like literal actual hell.
It is. The game itself before that isn't, though. You know what I mean? But the problem is that games like that are built on the game after the game. You know?
Right.
Like, they're not built for the game that's just put in front of you. They're built for the game that comes when you finish the game. And they didn't do that. They did a Bioware thing. They just built a game, and that's the problem, is they needed the game after the game, and it just wasn't there, and they never added it. You know what I mean? And there wasn't enough stuff. There wasn't enough reasons to put into your character or anything. You know what I mean? Like, you had the stuff you wanted at the end of the game, and then you just ground out for a couple more stuff, and then you're like, okay, I'm done. Like, that's the problem with those games. Like, that's what Destiny does, too, is it just keeps giving you stuff to do. You know what I mean? Reasons to come back to it. And Anthem didn't give you any.
Right.
So
yeah, I don't know.
So I agree with most of your conspiracy theory, honestly. You're in the right company for it.
Yeah.
But I do believe in my heart of hearts that the developers didn't know, and because everything they posted was a very earnest, like, look, we're really trying to make this good, you know? And I think they went into that meeting and just weren't expecting what happened, you know? And I think it was always EA's plan, and that's a bummer. I also want to say their statement of being with them every step of the way is bullshit, because you were with them every step of the way, but it was your decision to shutter them.
Right.
So saying that is a load of crap, because you decided to stop them. If you were with them every step of the way, you'd be with them on this step, and we'd get to see Anthem 2.0, you know?
What is confusing to me, too, I don't think that they plan on doing this. Are they going to release what they have finished?
No. Nope. You will get no more updates, so everything they worked on is just gone.
I mean, at this point, I would say at least throw that out there.
Yeah, at least show us some of it. Yeah.
The stuff that's incomplete, yeah, okay. Like, I'm sure they're like, oh, well, it'll throw the balance off of this, that, and the other thing. But honestly, at this point, what do you really have to lose by putting it out there?
Right. Yeah. And
you've already done the work. You've paid for it. It exists. Throw it out there.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see it even if it was buggy. You know what I mean? Because what does it matter? And the PC people could mod it. It's very frustrating to me because Anthem did still have a very tight, heavy community. I do want to say, just as a side note, before you're done with this subject, right? We can move on.
Yeah, pretty much.
I want to say one thing before we move on. A really cool nod to it is last minute. Outriders put in, so like when you're making your character, you can make like a tattoo, and you know what I mean, like your normal character customization stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But you can have piercings, like ear pierce, nose pierce, that sort of thing. One of the piercings is above the eye on the right, and it's the insignia for Anthem.
Oh, that's fun.
And a lot of people, like, they put that in last minute because Anthem got RIP'd.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's like a nod to the same thing. And I'm telling you right now, every one of my 4 characters has that fucking thing above their eye. So, all right, let's move on to odds and ends then.
Alrighty.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
That brings us to odds and ends. This is the segment of the show where we like to read to you guys some news stories that didn't necessarily require a whole talking point, but we still want to discuss them with you and just let you know what we're thinking about them. So, Neil, I got 4. How many you got, man?
I have 3, and one of them's gonna take me a minute. So
I should probably start this one off, is what you're saying.
Yeah, go ahead and start this one off. This is
All right.
odd, you having more than me.
Well, I want to tell you guys about the hottest new musical album coming out. The hardest of the hardcore on this album. I'm talking about Post Malone, Jay Blevin, Katy Perry, and they're all laying down fat tracks for Pokemon's 25th anniversary. That's right, they're going to be singing songs about Pokemon. Neil, this is the funniest thing I have seen, and it's totally real, and it just made me laugh so hard to see Post Malone's tattooed up face in a story that he's going to be singing a song on the Pokemon 25th anniversary.
So he actually, I just saw the video is up now of Post Malone. I didn't know the other ones were doing anything for it. Yeah, and it's not even like real Post Malone. It's Pokemon CG Post Malone.
Right.
So it's up. It's out there in the wilderness. I want to see it. I will do that soon. But yeah, I saw that and I thought it was just very interesting. And yeah, they did a whole bunch of stuff for the Pokemon anniversary actually too, and some of it's like really cool.
I mean, I'm sure it is. I just thought it was so funny that all these big people are doing like Pokemon 25th. You know?
Yeah. It's that. I mean, that's cool. It's wild, but at the same time too, I've never associated any of those people with Pokemon.
Right. Exactly. So I guess I'll go ahead and take one more so that you're...
No. Post Malone kind of looks like a Ditto gone wrong sometimes.
He does. He totally does.
All right, yeah, go ahead and do another one.
Yeah, I'll do one more, and then that'll make us right for your last one. The next one I'm going to say is the Halo show. It was on Showtime.
Yeah.
It has been moved to Paramount Plus. They are saying it is going to be launching on Paramount Plus, the streaming service, as streaming services become on the rise. I don't really have any thoughts on this. Just thought I should let people know out there that they're going to need a Paramount Plus subscription in order to see the Halo show.
And you know what? I can neither confirm nor deny that I am going to maybe not have to just pirate it, because let's be real, like all of these subscriptions for all these services streaming wise, they took off because it gave people a legitimate way to watch these shows and listen to music and stuff like that for, a flat, light monthly fee. But there was only like one at first, and then there was like 3. People wanted to cut the cord and get away from all the, cable and everything to watch the shows that they want to watch. And signed up for these instead. But now everybody's got their own thing.
Yep.
And I already have 4 video streaming services.
Yep.
And I feel like that's too much for me right now as it is. And I will absolutely not subscribe to another one.
Right.
I don't understand. I want to know what motivated this move.
Oh, I'll tell you what motivated this move, Netflix. So, and I've said this for a while, what happens with these streaming services is you had cable. There was no choice in cable. Cable's not fun. You just have to be around to watch it unless you got a TiVo. And then Netflix came out and Hulu came out, and you had this like, oh, I can watch it whenever I want over here. I just have to wait till the next day. Or till the season comes out on DVD. And they started making all the money. So what you end up having is all the cable channels realize they're not making money anymore, so they migrate into the streaming area, but they splinter off the streaming area because they take their stuff that they were giving to Netflix and Hulu off of those programs to put on their own, which makes more people have to buy streaming services. Well, more people means more money, more services means more money, and it eventually gets more expensive than cable, which at that point, everybody will migrate back to cable. Cable will become incredibly cheap. It'll become incredibly easy to use. And like a few people will move back to it. And then all of a sudden you'll have it's just this constant like circular motion with the TV.
I mean, I actually meant about the move for the Halo show between the two networks, but
okay,
I just kind of let you know.
I guess I went on a tangent there, but I don't understand that movie either. I don't know. I mean, it's got a little weight behind it, so I guess they want like a big heavy hitter on Paramount, but I don't quite get that either. All right, so your first one, man.
All right, so apparently, we did not hear more about the Zelda 35th anniversary plans in Nintendo's last Direct because they still want the focus to be on celebrating Mario's 35th anniversary, according to an industry insider.
Okay.
According to that same individual, more Zelda info will be coming this summer. I mean, we kind of assume at this point Breath of the Wild 2 information is going to be coming out this summer, but I think that they are going to go ahead and give Zelda the same treatment as they're giving Mario. That also said, I mean, what about Metroid? Because Metroid's in the same boat. I mean, Nintendo's got all of their anniversaries all at once, and if they don't want to step on the toes of the other and devote an entire year to each one of them,
right?
I mean, okay.
Well, I will say that Metroid, while it's a popular franchise, I'm not insulting it. It is not. It hasn't had a good entry in a long time, and it's not in the zeitgeist as much as like Zelda or Mario is, whereas Zelda continues to release solid properties basically every year. So I think that's kind of something that would add into it, like why Metroid isn't going to get as big a celebration, you know?
I just want to know why Samus is just getting the cold shoulder. I
mean... It's not Samus's fault. It's they keep giving him the crappy developers, but Samus is not getting. She's not getting the releases, and if she's not getting the releases, then they can't really put a lot of hoopla around her, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know Other M was not very popular. For myself, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed Other M. I don't know why people really hated it so badly. And the Metroid 2 remake on the 3DS was solid. I mean, it didn't hit like like a lot of people thought it was going to, because it was a remake of 2 and not a brand new entry. But oh well.
Oh well.
Ramblings of an old man, I guess.
Right.
So what do you got next?
My next one is bummer. Patch 1.2 delay for Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk was supposed to get a big patch here very soon, and it was going to be 1.2 that fixed a bunch of stuff. It has been delayed for quite some time. I don't think they've even given a release date on when it's actually coming out.
Last I saw was end of March.
End of March. So another month out for that game to get good. It's got an 80% drop-off rate. I think we're noticing some serious, like the building's starting to fall. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean they are blaming the hack on this.
Yes.
I mean, sure, you can point to any one bad thing that happens and say, yeah, that's the reason why we're, you know. I mean, I'm not discounting the fact that they probably had to do some sort of, you know, network maintenance because the hackers probably trashed everything on the way out, digitally speaking.
Right.
But I don't think that this is this shouldn't have, unless they specifically targeted this update code. Right. I don't want to know, like, they have all their developers.
Bullshit. I think they had a convenient excuse at their fingertips and they used it because they didn't have it ready yet. That's what I think. I think, well, we just got hacked. Let's say that's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. At this point, like, I mean, this is the gift that keeps on giving news. So, I mean, I'm gonna glom onto it for that.
I would say more like it's the dog that keeps shitting on my lawn.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a very apt descriptor. Yeah, the dog got into the trash
and is pooping there,
shitting everywhere.
It's not even my dog; it's somebody else's dog. It's just shitting all over my lawn once a day. All right,
they probably ate that overbaked cake.
All right, it's your move, Bud.
All right. So apparently,
left, right?
Apparently we have not moved on ever from this. Representative Marcus Evan Jr. of Illinois wants to completely ban the sale of Grand Theft Auto 5 outright to anyone at all because of an uptick of carjackings in the Chicago area and elsewhere in the state. He claims that the game causes psychological harm and is a huge part of the issue. Okay, sure, whatever. There have been countless, endless studies done on this. Violent games do not make people violent. Stop it.
Yep.
You are ridiculous. We have actual scientific data to back this up. If you want to think that that's the problem, that can be your own personal opinion. Stop it. Stop it. It is so annoying.
Yeah, it is really annoying. And I think that there's a rating system in place. It's there for a reason. You know, like...
That's the whole reason the ESRB.
Right. I hate to say it, but are we going to blame R-rated movies for shootings? Like, I mean, where does it stop at this point? Like, you can give it a rating system, and then at some point, you've just got to say, this is what it is. Look, do I think that violent people are given ideas by video games? Sure. But they were violent people. Like,
right.
Like, something had already made them violent. Like, I think that, like, I think I think video games on a whole are a good thing. I think that there's, just like anything in this world, nothing is perfect. Nothing is all good or all bad. Every good person has ruined somebody's life, and every bad person has given to charity. Like, it's just, there's just no, everything is a shade of gray. Do I think video games are always the answer? No. Do I think video games should be blamed for carjackings in Chicago? That's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous thing. It's a ridiculous thing to think that that's the reason. I mean, unless every one of these carjackers are like, Grand Theft Auto told me to do it. Like, it's ridiculous to think this. And I think that we have to, at some point, say, these people did a thing. They weren't propelled by any reason. They did the thing. They have to be held accountable for their actions.
And I can see the argument for requiring IDs for, like, you know, M-rated games and stuff like that.
Sure.
Because they're, kids should not be subjected to some of these things.
Right.
At an earlier age, they're easily influenced on these things.
Sure.
I mean, to make this, to this guy's point, yeah, if you give, little 6-year-old Timmy Mortal Kombat and Grand Theft Auto to play his whole life, he might grow up a little messed up without proper guidance.
Right.
But at the same time, if a 31-year-old man wants to go buy a game about, killing hookers and gang members and stealing cars and killing people, I know that is fake. Right. And it is a game and is not real. It is not going to inspire me to go do something. And like
unless
you said,
you were already going to do something.
Right. Like you said, like, unless I, for some reason, already had that disposition. But at that point, that's an issue that does not fall under the realm of video games. That is an actual, literal mental health issue that needs taken care of.
Well, and I'm not going to lie. I usually try and stay away from this subject on the podcast just because it's tricky. But
right.
I want to say, aside from whether you think video games causes people to do bad things or not, aside from that, we live in a country that supposedly has free speech. That means freedom of freedom of artistic expression. Now, there is a rating system in place for these, for movies, for music, all of these things. There has to be a point, if you're going to live in that society with that freedom of artistic expression, that you have to say, we've done what we can do for this. That's it. We deal with whatever comes after that. And we're at a point where, like, video games are rated. They are not supposed, like, an M-rated game is not supposed to be in the hands of a child. It's just not supposed to be there. Does it get into the hands of a child? I am positive it does. But you have to weigh that. Do you want to live in a society that is allowed to express itself in any way, shape, or form, or do you want to take video games away from people completely? Like, those are your options, because if you restrict one form of art, you restrict all of them, and that's just the way it is. Like, that means we don't get any more John Wick movies, that in addition to games, and I think that people need to realize that. Like, people need to realize that there is a cost. It's not even a cost, but if you believe that video games do cause violence, then that's the cost of living in a society like that, I mean, you can always move to China, where they've completely banned video games because of this reason. Like, it's kind of a tricky situation, and I want to say 100%, I don't believe video games cause people to be violent. I don't. But I'm just saying, on that surface level, you've got to decide where you want your freedoms to be. I personally want my freedoms to be in artistic expression. I want anybody to be able to put anything out there, and I want it to be the responsibility of the people who are viewing it, or taking care of the people who are viewing it, to restrict their own access, or the people they are taking care of's access to the content.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's just kind of that. And I hate people who live in a society that's been built on that freedom and then want to, like, rail against, like, want to take it away because of the fact that it's causing harm. Like, look, dude, this is the society. Like, even if you 100% believe this game is causing these kids to do it, you also have to see that there's a rating system in place and they shouldn't have that game,
Right.
So you have to choose. Like, and I personally want to choose the side of freedom of artistic expression. I don't know. Did that make sense to you?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You got quiet. I was afraid you were going to yell saltines at me.
No. It wasn't one of those awkward quiets. Okay. It wasn't one of those. Why are you talking about doing Animal Crossing characters quiets?
Oh. Hey, that happens. What can I say? All right. I only have one left before you go crazy.
Okay.
And that would be EA just patented this crazy technology that I'm guessing they're going to implement, where you can actually stream a game to play it before it's downloaded, which I think is really cool. I miss the days where I could just get home with my video game, put it into the system, and play it immediately. This would basically, the process of this would mean that, like, you could play the game streaming, kind of like a cloud-based thing, while it's downloading. Like, it would give you access.
Which is cool, because then, I mean, technically speaking, they would only have to have so much of that game available to be streamed.
Right.
I mean, unless you're either some crazy speedrunner or the game itself is massive.
Right. I mean, it would cut down on network. It's just a cool thing. It's a cool little feature. I mean, I hate to sing EA's praise, but I love the idea of, hey, I mean, I can't count the number of times I've gone shopping and I want to make an impulse buy, and then I make that impulse buy and I realize I can't play it until tomorrow. Like, it would be really nice to have it, like, right then and there. I can just play it,
Yeah, I mean, that was a big issue with Cyberpunk whenever it came out for me. I mean, I had issues downloading,
Yep.
installing, and it was a whole process. It took me hours before I was able to play it.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so that's it for me, man. Go to
All
town.
right. All right. So there's going to be a lot of talking, and it's just going to be a kind of stream of consciousness. It's going to start with my last odd and end, and then I will go.
Okay.
As we all know, I mentioned last week, the RTX 3060s launched on the 25th. Absolutely unsurprisingly, they sold out in fucking seconds. However, the $325 MSRP was going for an actual average of $471, topping out at $630. Now, you must be thinking, oh, these scalpers are doubling their money, but they're still scalping. No, this was from places like Best Buy. We have gotten to that point that now the other like actual storefronts are selling these at a markup on top of the tariffs that jumped the price of these cards up, on top of the fact that we already have to contend with scalpers, on top of the fact that some of these cards just naturally cost more anyways because of who you are getting them from. They only had one card at the actual $325 MSRP, and that was the EVGA card. All of the other cards were over MSRP. I saw one going for 600 was the one that I had seen. So now all of the manufacturing partners themselves are jacking the prices up. And I understand we're going through a shortage right now of all this stuff and everything's high demand, this, that, and the other. But I literally have gotten to the fucking point that I'm like, I waited years to finally build a PC and I just want to throw the shit out the fucking window. Because I have been beating my head against a wall trying to get this stuff. I only need two things. I just need the graphics card and the processor. You cannot even get 1600 versions of the GTX cards for below $700-800 at this point because they are impossible to find. Even the 960 cards, the cards that only have like 2 gigs of video RAM in them, are still going for $500-600. It is absolutely impossible to get any of these things. I have tried my goddamnedest to try and get one of these things. As I had mentioned before, I'm subscribed to a notification bot. I pay $5 a month and I tell it to look for up to 10 things. The app is called Hot Stock. So whenever these things come into stock, this bot checks every minute to see if these things are in stock. I actually today, before we started recording, realized that Amazon was releasing stock every 15 minutes or so and was obsessively checking my phone. I beat the notification bot by a minute and a half, and I still didn't even have a chance to get any of these fucking cards. And I understand, it's the bots and people are just buying them up to scalp them. But like, what is the end game? What is the critical mass? Because, for these scalpers to keep doing this shit, they have to be, somebody somewhere has to be spending these stupid amounts markups on these cards to buy these things. They are buying literally all of them. Somebody somewhere has to have, it's either for mining or whatever. And even these mining cards that they're going to be coming out with aren't necessarily going to be appealing to scalpers, because then the scalpers are just going to be competing against themselves and they're just going to turn back to the regular old market, to the regular old cards. And I had actually seen a video as well by Linus Tech Tips, had even said too that it's actually horrible for the environment as well, on top of all the other horse shit involved with this. It's like, I just, at my wit's fucking end. and supply is expected to remain short for a very, very long time. It's going to be at least bare minimum April, May before we even get a slight uptick in anything. And I have even seen reports of not until the beginning of 2022 for us to get this back under control. So I don't literally, like I said, I just want to just almost sell all the shit that I went and bought, because at this point, literally it's a waste. It is an absolute waste. By the time everything rolls around for me to be able to actually use the stuff that I got, it will have been halfway, not halfway, but I would have lost a year on this stuff's life, the life cycle of it. On top of that, all of these other, the companies, both NVIDIA and AMD, the sack on them to even consider talking about revisions of their cards, right, putting out supers, of NVIDIA putting out supers, and next month AMD is gonna unveil a 6700 variant. No. Why do the 3600s even exist? They're jamming RAM into this thing just to make numbers go up that does not equate to performance. It's trash. It's frustrating. I seriously don't even know why I try at this point. I'm
totally agree with you, man. And what's even worse is look, COVID was bad. I'm not saying it's not, but it's been a year now. How have you guys not figured out how to deal with it at this point? And yeah, I don't even think it's all the scalpers. I think these companies are just not doing a very good job.
Yeah,
And definitely stop advertising new stuff when you cannot give us the stuff that we have now. Why do you even have anybody on R&D? Put them all on manufacturing right now.
Well, from what I understand, it literally comes down to the manufacturing of the actual silicone wafers that are used for everything. And I could be understanding this completely wrong, but that manufacture of strictly making those wafers to send out to produce things comes out of one single factory in Taiwan,
which is insane.
Why is that the answer? 100% insane.
Yes. At all. Why hasn't anybody built another factory? That's what I'm saying. The infrastructure for this stuff is just lunacy.
Yeah,
so now you got one factory affected by COVID, and bam, the whole world shuts down.
Which, I mean, if COVID's exposed anything, it's been, one of the many things, truthfully, that it's exposed is the weak supply structure that we have, not only in this here country, but in others. And it's we get. Sorry,
No, you're fine, man. You're fine.
It's if we now have to rely on things to get the stuff that we want on a fair level playing field by literally joining an actual lottery.
Right.
So you sign up to maybe win the chance to buy something at an inflated price because it's coming bundled in a package because your nuts are in a vice.
Right.
And even that, with this Newegg shuffle, everything goes by the Pacific Standard Time. We are on the East Coast. Basically, how it works out, if you get chosen for the Newegg shuffle, you get notified somewhere around 6-ish, 5-ish, 6-ish, if you won and you are able to buy the things that you're trying to buy.
Right.
I don't get my emails sometimes until 10 o'clock at night when the shuffle's been over for 3 hours. So you can't even get that right. I don't want to beat a dead horse about this.
No, I get it.
It's just absolutely frustrating. It's just frustrating. And I know this first world problem, I'm crying because I can't spend money on things. But it's the fact that I already have spent money.
Right.
All told, I've added everything up. I have $1,200-$1,300 worth of stuff for this computer, but I can't even start to assemble it because I don't even have a processor yet.
Right. I think
it's just frustrating.
I totally understand. The only thing I was going to say when you interrupted me was, in this amount of time, you could have literally built and staffed another factory that could make those little wafer things.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand how you haven't handled this by now. It's been a year. Handle this. Like, I don't understand what the problem is anymore. Like, the problem is very obviously you guys don't care enough, and that's obnoxious. Like, I don't get it, you know.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
but, that's my rant. I
it's a good rant.
blew off
good
steam.
Rant.
It's wonderful.
It's a good rant. Let's go ahead and go to the horrible arena then.
All right.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, brings us to the end of the show, the moment of truth, the main event, the moment you've all been waiting for. And this will be the Horrible Arena. What is the Horrible Arena if you have never watched or listened? Well, first of all, please watch or listen more. But it is where your two co-hosts, that means me and Neil, are going to pitch you a game based on pre-existing criteria, either picked by the guest, in this case definitely picked by the guest, or we take turns. The guest picked family-friendly game that both an adult and a kid can play and still have fun. Now, we are going to pitch you the developer of the game. We're going to pitch you the elevator pitch of the game and the title of the game. And then you guys will get to go to all the places and tell us which one you would spend your hard-earned money on if you had to choose. So the quantum coin has been tossed. Neil, you have one. Take it away.
All right, so my game is going to be called Project Duality, and it's going to be done by Hazelight Studios, the people who did A Way Out. So Project Duality is a co-op 3D platformer. A brother and a sister go on an adventure to find a cure for their sick mother, and they happen upon an old witch who promises them a miracle cure, but only if the two can traverse through a mirror dimension where the crucial ingredient to the cure resides. The players would both be progressing through two identical versions of the same level, one of them in each one of them. However, they would be separated, as in, both sides of a mirror. Every level eventually changes depending on the skill of the other player and not your own, tipping the balance of play like a scale. So the game would measure the speed, the speed at which the players are progressing individually and the amount of enemies being taken out, and comparing that against the other player and making adjustments on the fly. So perhaps, like in your situation, a parent and a young child are playing together. If they're about the same skill level, they are going both about the same speed, dealing with the same enemies, about the same rate. The game wouldn't change too much, if at all. However, if one player is struggling, the other player will see their difficulty start to climb. So if one player keeps falling into a pit or missing jumps, each death would close the width of that jump a little more each time. However, that little bit of width would then be added to the other player's pits. Obviously, still making them, able to be traversed, not making it impossible. But combat would be very simple, jumping on enemies, using weapons like swords or anything like that. But it would also scale in damage dealt and received, as well as the number of enemies. However, there is also the possibility of high-level play as well. If both players are exceptionally skilled, they could play through. They could through play use their own skill to advance the difficulty to a point where they would need to complete their runs through the level flawlessly to progress. So if they were both running through, nobody really taking any damage, anything like that, both of their enemies would get stronger. So both sides of this mirror dimension would end up scaling up eventually to a point where it would hit a critical mass and they're both just too good, or B, one's run was just slightly different than the other depending on how they're going. There would also be puzzles in some levels that would only appear for one player to solve, that would also scale in difficulty. However, the players can swap realities of the sides of these mirror dimensions to solve the puzzles if one is struggling. However, if they swap, the difficulty of the puzzle would scale to that new player's current difficulty level, and again flip the difficulty scales depending on where the less or more skilled player is. There would also be an online 4-player competitive mode where the players could compete against each other in like a score attack or time attack mode, as well as a survival mode reminiscent of Mario 35, where taking out enemies on your run sends them to other players. So this isn't normally part of a pitch, but I just kind of bring this up. I came up with this idea as a game that would be a great introduction for new gamers, young and old, and it would still provide a challenge, yet encourage progression through play if the player gets stuck. Something like Celeste kind of did.
Okay.
It's got something for everyone from novice to expert. So, yeah, that's my game, Project Duality.
Who was your developer, man? I missed it.
What was it called? Hazelight? The
Hazelight.
People did,
yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Did a layout.
Jose Ferris.
Yeah, crazy guy.
Yeah, crazy guy. Okay, all right. There's a good pitch. I liked it.
Thanks.
Okay, so mine, and I think it's interesting that both of ours deals with like a dynamically changing difficulty scale. So all right. So my pitch. First of all, I really wanted to consider what the question was. It kind of came from Melissa in the way that she wanted me to basically, she wanted a game that I could play and have as much fun as my 4-year-old could play and have as much fun. So I really tried to think about what Stella can play, what Stella is able to play. Stella has shown more interest in video games. She's played a lot of Super Mario Deluxe. However, it's hyper frustrating because she has a really hard time figuring out that she can move while she jumps and other such like mechanics to it. She plays Animal Crossing, and she actually has a lot of fun with Animal Crossing. But when it comes to interacting with the game with more than just like a button press, things get a little wonky. So, that being said, that's how I try to decide my game. So my game will be Project Spell Limit, and it will be developed by Ruinix Studios, the developers of the Torchlight series. It will be a top-down game in which you build a village to start, and then you can, of course, populate it with people. Now, one thing that I noticed that she had a huge hard time with is timing games. So, like, she can't fish in Animal Crossing. So she hits this barrier to play really fast where basically she can look at everything and then she's done because she can't do anything else. She can't do any of the grindy stuff. It's not that she wouldn't be interested in it. She just can't do it. So what we will be talking about in this game is a dynamic system addition, a dynamic way of adding systems as the player's difficulty increases. So, my kid, the 4-year-old, everything will be off 4 buttons. When you are in the city, you can press 1 button to interact with everything, and so she can go talk to people. She can manage her she can kind of manage her inventory, so that's something she can do in the village. She can just interact with things, and then everything she presses that button with will interact with her. She can shake trees, pick flowers, stuff like that that's really cool, and I can be there with her. But now you're saying, hey, Zach, this is great, but like, how does an adult get into it? Well, as much as this would be cool for her because she likes to interact with things, there would also be another mode. To actually collect things for your village, resources and whatnot, you would have to go out on these quests, these dungeon crawls, and it would work a lot like a Torchlight game. You would go out, you would equip your stuff, you'd go out and you'd fight these things. What's interesting about this is that I can do this on my own to collect materials for her to use at the city. So when she's playing, she can have a lot of fun building the city and interacting with those materials that I have to go out and get, which is a lot of fun for me because I get the grind, and plus the reward of the loot isn't necessarily actually acquiring stuff for me to get better, but it's actually for me to make her experience better, which is kind of an interesting in-person way of doing things. Now, of course, she can join me on those quests. And what's interesting about the joining is we can fight through it, but all of the spells of your character will be locked to 4 buttons. So the 4 buttons of whatever you're playing on. So basically you're moving and you're pressing those buttons to attack. So it would be very easy for her to actually combat villains. She could just throw the fire over and over, or throw up a shield or something, and she could slowly start to understand the systems of the game. What's interesting is as you progress, a more advanced player like me gets an inventory system where I can start to mess with my builds. I can change those 4 abilities. I can cross-class the spells that I go into a thing equipped with, whereas she can just sit with the same stuff and still be okay. Like, the bad guys who attack her are not going to do that much more damage than me. I'm just going to be a little bit better, a little bit stronger. Now, as the system increases, as we both show our skill, as she shows her skill, she gets more access to that system. So she has fun at the 4-year-old. With the 4-year-old, she just wants to run around a thing and press buttons and interact with she wants to directly interact with the experience right there in front of her. This game allows her to do that, while I want a complicated system-based game where I can get hours of fun from looting and other stuff. That allows me to do it, but what's even more fun about this, it gives us that connection. I am getting stuff for her to have fun for. She can then come out and I can teach her that stuff. It's kind of like we're living that father and daughter relationship in the game as the game progresses along, and you can play it long into adulthood. It will, of course, have a multiplayer. And what's interesting about this is how cool would it be to pair up with your friend who also has a daughter, and they're playing. Now you're playing with your daughter's friend and your friend online, tackling these dungeons in 4-player co-op. I think that would be so great right there. So that's my pitch. Spell Limit. It's taken on Project Duality. I think these are 2 great pitches. I think we both definitely really worked hard on this. And I'm definitely going to force Melissa to listen to this and give a vote. So we'll have to see what she tells. But you can vote on all the things in all the places that we will tell you when we come back. Whose turn was it to pick, though, Neil? It was yours.
I literally don't remember.
I picked Western. It was yours. What are we pitching next week? You can't. I'm not going to pitch a fart game.
You what?
I'm not going to pitch a fart game.
Yeah, fart game. Well, we already did that one. It was my Kojima game. Oh, God. I don't even know. I'm like literally like looking around my room right now, like trying to see if anything sparks.
All right.
An idea.
I'm going to take it then, but you got to take the next 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Okay.
You got to take 2 weeks in a row, but I'll take this one since technically this is 2 weeks in a row for me.
Okay.
All right. Next week, we are pitching a tabletop role-playing game conversion to video game. So
one that exists?
Yes. So if you want to pitch a D&D conversion, pitch a D&D conversion. If you want to pitch Savage Worlds or the Star Wars D6 system, pitch those. Pitch a tabletop role-playing game conversion to a video game.
Now, to clarify, is it using literally just that system that exists, or take something that is a game already and apply it to the tabletop system?
Oh, no. I want you to use the game itself.
The actual game itself.
Yeah, okay. So if it's like, I mean, you can do that in any way you want. Like, if it's a real loose, open-ended game like Savage Worlds, you could make almost like an RPG creator type game. That would be interesting. But, like, I mean, like, you have to use the tabletop game to make a game out of it. To make a video game out of it.
All right.
Not necessarily the rules. You can totally implement them if you want. But if you want, like, a hack-and-slash dungeon crawler from D&D, go for it. Just, you have to take a tabletop game and convert it in the way you would like to see it converted to a digital video game.
All right.
Okay?
All righty. That sounds, that could be fun.
I think it'll be fun. I don't think I've ever pitched this before, too.
No,
so
I don't think so. I think that's a new one.
Yeah. All right. So we'll be right back.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
So that brings us to the end of the show and the shameless self-promotion that comes with it. Neil, do you got anything special you want to throw out there?
Yeah. So, from what I understand, you guys will be taking a week off.
No,
but
we aren't.
No?
You can pitch
No,
it. You can pitch it.
Wait, you're not taking it? You guys decided not to take the week off?
We decided not to.
Okay. Well, coming up here this Sunday, we did some shenanigans with Mario Party, and it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I got yelled at. It was great.
I think everybody got yelled at. It was wonderful.
Everybody
chaos.
got yelled at.
You got yelled at a lot at the end, and you deserved every goddamn word of it. But
I would have had it had you guys not ganged up on me.
You deserved everything you got at the end, and I dare anyone watching it to disagree with us. But I think everybody got it.
Wait like a month before you see what happened.
That's true. That's true. It is a month. That's the point. That's the little cliffhanger. But yeah, the Mario Party episodes will start this Sunday on Prelude. Kayla and Neil did, and man, did I have fun with Mario Party. That was a lot of fun.
Mario Party is always a good time.
Yeah.
And we also are still doing Halo Infinite Road. Now,
always and forever.
We are, if I were to guess, I'd say about half, 3/4-ish.
Yeah.
Approaching 3/4 of the way through Halo 2. So I'm just going to plant the seed right now. We do Halo Infinite War as well whenever we finish off one of those seasons. So we don't know anything for sure yet, but we're going to start considering that, and we should actually probably have a conversation about that on Wednesday, actually.
I think Wednesday is a great day for that conversation. I am exhausted and have a really long day, so I have to pass out right now. The other problem that Halo Infinite War is just we have just not had the time to, like, I don't know what people are, how much people see we do, but we have upped our streaming. So we're streaming a lot. We are releasing tons of videos weekly, like at least a video per day. Like not necessarily on the day of, but at least a video's worth of something for every 7 days of the week, plus extra, plus the streaming. So we just haven't had time to organize that yet, is all.
But that's going to be something that's coming up, and that's all I got.
Okay,
that's all I got to throw out there. So whatever you got.
Well, as usual, I'm going to promote OMGW. It's going on right now. I put an ungodly amount of work into that, so please, please, please watch it and enjoy it because I love it and I love doing it. Also, please check out our newest show, 5 Things, where we examine a game either coming out or has come out, and we talk about 5 things we want to see in it. This week, we are doing 5 things we want to see from the full game release of Outriders. And you can also watch, I decided to do a review on it, even though it's just a demo. I only usually get 5 hours with a game before I do a review anyway, so I just decided to review the demo. So check. I mean,
that's going to be the full release anyways, from what I understand. Everything carries over and everything does me as well.
Exactly. I mean, I'll probably do another review once the full release comes out, but yeah, I mean, basically. So check that out. And as far as everything else, check out everything we have to offer. You can also contact us on Facebook at OldManGamingDH, on Twitter at OldManGaming9. You can join our Discord. The link is in the description below. You can influence this and all of our shows from there. Please, please, please like, subscribe, tell your friends about us, and as long as you guys keep watching, we'll keep making them. See you guys next week.